Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something a little different. Usually when we talk about crime or, rule breaking,
Yeah.
the conversation just stops at the individual.
Oh, absolutely. It's the default setting.
You see a mugshot on the news, you hear about some scandal, and your brain just makes this really simple equation. Bad person plus bad choices equals a bad outcome.
It is. We personalize deviance. We assume the whole problem begins and ends, inside someone's head. If they break a rule, it must be because their moral compass is just broken.
But today, we're stripping that assumption away. We're working through Module 4 of SOC 230, and the mission here is to look at rule breaking through a sociologist's eyes.
And it's a real perspective shift.
It is, because sociology suggests that deviance isn't just random, it's structured, it has patterns.
Exactly. If you only look at the individual, you completely miss the machinery that's operating in the background. So we need to unpack the major theoretical perspectives that explain why deviance happens.
Okay, but before we get into the theories, we have to make one thing crystal clear.
The disclaimer.
The disclaimer.
Yes. Explanation is not the same as an excuse. When we analyze the social forces that might push someone toward a crime, we are not saying the behavior is okay.
We're not justifying harm.
Not at all. We are just trying to understand the root causes so we can actually make sense of it all.
Right. You can't fix a car if you don't know how the engine works. So, looking at the module, the theories seem to be split into two very different camps.
They are. And it really helps to think of them as two different camera lenses. First, you have structural theories.
The wide-angle lens.
That's a perfect way to put it. It looks at the epidemiology of deviance. How is it distributed across society? Why is the crime rate higher in this neighborhood than that one?
So it's the where and how much.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking at the big picture, not the specific person.
Precisely. Then you swap lenses to processual theories. This is your macro lens. It zooms way, way in on the individual.
This one asks, how did this person come to commit this act?
That's it. It's much closer to social psychology.
Okay, that framework makes a lot of sense. So let's start with the wide angle, the structural perspective. And the heavyweight in this corner seems to be anomie or strain theory.
An absolute classic. We're talking Robert Merton back in the 1930s. And frankly, even though it's almost 100 years old, it feels incredibly relevant today.
It really does. The core idea is this tension around the American dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
The theory says society is kind of setting people up to fail.
In a way, yes. Merton argued that our society works on two tracks. Track one is the culture. This tells all of us what we should want.
Wealth, status, the big house, the nice car.
Right. We're all taught that this is success. But then you have track two, the social structure. And this provides the legitimate means to get those things.
Things like good schools, good jobs, access to capital.
Exactly. And unlike the goals, which are broadcast to everyone, the means are definitely not distributed equally.
So you have a culture shouting, get rich, at everyone, but a structure that's telling a huge chunk of the population, sorry, we're fresh out of opportunities.
And that gap, that disconnect between the goals and the means, that's anomie. It's a state of societal strain. And Merton says people have to adapt to that pressure. Something has to snap.
The text uses a case study here that I found really helpful. The story of Nick.
A tragic but perfect illustration.
So Nick grows up in a lower-class family. They live in a poor urban community, high unemployment. But Nick, he buys into the cultural goal. He has the dream.
He wants to be a physician.
Which is exactly what we tell kids they should aspire to be. You can be anything.
But then reality hits. The means are blocked. His high school is underfunded. He can't afford a university. That legitimate path is just a dead end for him.
But the desire doesn't just vanish. He still wants the success, the money. And he sees guys in his neighborhood who have that money, but they're dealing drugs.
And that's the pivot. Nick turns to selling drugs. In Merton's terminology, Nick becomes an innovator.
Which is funny because I usually think of an innovator as like a tech genius.
In this context, innovation means you accept the goal, which is wealth, but you reject the legitimate means because they just aren't working for you. You create your own illegitimate means.
So crime is just an efficient, illegal way to get the goal.
It is, but of course, not everyone in that situation becomes an innovator. That's just one of 5 adaptations.
Right. The most common is conformity.
That's where you accept both the goals and the means. You just keep playing by the rule, even if you know you're probably going to lose. Most people are conformists.
Then you have ritualism. This one felt kind of depressing to me.
It's a bit bleak. The ritualist gives up on the goal. They know they'll never be rich. But they stick to the rules anyway, they just go through the motions.
And retreatism.
That's checking out of the system entirely, rejecting both the goals and the means. Think chronic addiction or just dropping out of the contest altogether.
And the final one was rebellion.
The rebels, they don't just want to break the rules, they want to change the game. They try to replace the whole system with new goals and new means.
So string theory says crime isn't about having bad values. Nick didn't deal drugs because he hated society's goals. He did it because he loved them too much and couldn't get them the legal way.
That is the perfect summary. It's a normal response to an abnormal situation.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate. The text points out a major flaw. It assumes everyone wants money, and it focuses almost entirely on the poor.
The white-collar crime problem.
Exactly. Why do billionaires commit fraud? They aren't suffering from blocked opportunity.
And that is the classic critique. String theory is powerful for explaining street crime, but it just falls apart when you get to crimes of the powerful. It's incomplete.
Which sets us up perfectly for the next big theory. Because if strain theory asks why people break the rules, this next one asks, who makes the rules in the first place?
Now we're getting into conflict perspectives.
Yeah.
And this is a massive shift. We're not looking at the criminal anymore. We're looking at the lawmaker.
But you can't talk about this without bringing up Karl Marx.
You really can't. The whole perspective is rooted in the idea that society isn't this happy, cohesive unit. It's a battlefield, a struggle between the bourgeoisie, the owners, and the proletariats, the workers.
So in this view, the law is not a neutral referee.
Not even close. It's a weapon. Conflict theorists argue the powerful use the entire legal system to protect their own interests and keep the working class in check.
This makes sense when you look at how we punish street crimes versus sweet crimes.
Right. Think about the damage from a massive financial fraud. It can ruin thousands of lives. But does the CEO get a SWAT team kicking down their door?
Usually not. They might pay a fine. But if a poor kid burglarizes a house...
The response is very, very different. Conflict theory says that disparity isn't an accident. The system is designed to police the poor.
The source material brings up the social threat hypothesis.
Yes, which suggests that when the ruling class feels threatened, maybe by economic instability, they don't just fix the economy, they ramp up crime control.
Like the war on drugs.
That's a key example. The argument is that the massive increase in incarceration wasn't just about crime rates. It was a strategy to manage a population that was seen as a threat to the social order.
But is it really that cynical? I mean, laws against murder and theft benefit everyone, right?
Yeah.
Not just the rich.
And that's the main critique. It can be too binary. It ignores that there is a genuine consensus on some things. Rape, murder, we all agree those should be illegal.
The text mentions a group called left realists who try to bridge that gap.
Yeah. Left realism is kind of the reality check for conflict theory. They say, look, the system is rigged, but we can't ignore that street crime actually does hurt working class people the most.
It's usually poor people victimizing other poor people.
Right. So you can't just wait for revolution. You need to take crime seriously right now because it's destroying communities.
Okay, so that covers the forest, the big structural views. Now let's zoom in. Let's look at the trees, the processual theories.
This is where we get into the psychology of the interaction. And we have to start with symbolic interactionism, specifically labeling theory.
This one really messes with your head because it completely flips cause and effect, we think. Yeah. You do something bad, so you get labeled a criminal.
But labeling theory suggests the opposite. You get labeled, and then you become a criminal.
The reactivist definition.
Exactly. Deviance isn't in the act itself, it's a consequence of how other people react to you. The act is only bad because we call it bad.
We have another case study here, Jacob. And this one was just tough to read.
It's a heartbreaking example, but it shows exactly how the mechanism works.
So Jacob is 12, normal kid. He wants this one football card, but he has no money. So in a moment of stupidity, he pockets the card.
Okay, pause right there. That initial act, the theft, is what we call primary deviance. At this point, Jacob doesn't see himself as a criminal. He's just a kid who did something dumb.
But he gets caught. The police get called. He gets dragged through juvenile court and is officially labeled a delinquent. And that's where the slide begins.
Because that label is sticky. His parents stop trusting him. His teachers watch him like a hawk. The good kids start calling him Javi.
He's isolated. So he finds the only group that will accept him, the other kids who have been labeled delinquents.
And this leads to secondary deviance. Now he's acting out, maybe stealing more, because he's internalized that label. He's playing the part society gave him.
He's thinking, well, if you already think I'm bad,
I might as well be bad. And this is where the label becomes a master status.
Meaning it swallows up every other part of his identity.
It doesn't matter if he's a good artist or a kind brother. All people see is the label. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It makes you wonder how many career criminals started out as just Jacobs. Kids who needed guidance but got a label instead.
It's a powerful idea. But the theory does have a big limitation.
It doesn't explain the start.
Exactly. It ignores the primary deviance. Jacob did steal the card before anyone labeled him. The theory is great at explaining why people reoffend, but not the origin of the behavior.
Okay, let's flip the question entirely. All these other theories ask, why do people break rules? But one theory asks, why don't we all break rules?
Control theory.
And this one assumes we're all naturally, well, not so great.
It assumes human nature is egocentric. We want what we want, and we want it now. Control theory says the only reason we conform is because we're restrained by our social bonds. We're on a leash.
The text compares two boys, Laurent and Justin. Laurent conforms, Justin deviates.
And the theory says Laurent isn't a good boy because of his soul. He's good because he is tied to other people and institutions.
He's afraid of losing his connections.
Exactly. Hershey breaks this down into 4 specific bonds that keep us in line. The first one is attachment.
The emotional connection.
Yes. Laurent cares what his parents think. He respects his teachers. Justin feels disconnected, so he doesn't care if he disappoints anyone. If you don't care about people, you don't care about their rules.
Okay, the second is commitment.
This is your stake in conformity. What do you have to lose? Laurent has a reputation. He wants to go to college. He has a future to protect.
Justin feels like he has no future, so he's nothing to lose.
Precisely. Third is involvement.
This one's just practical, being too busy to get into trouble.
Idle hands are the devil's workshop. Laurent is in sports. He has homework. He literally doesn't have time to break the law.
And the final one is belief.
This is the moral buy-in. Do you actually believe the rules are fair and just? Laurent does. Justin thinks the whole system is a joke.
So if you want to stop crime, you don't just need more cops. You need more after-school programs, more community centers. You need to give kids something to lose.
You strengthen the bonds, you increase the control, but there is that dark undertone. It suggests that without these chains, we would all run wild.
It's a pretty pessimistic view of human nature. Okay, one last theory to cover. And this one is deceptively simple. It says deviance is just a skill you learn.
Learning theory or differential association? This is Edwin Sutherland's work.
It really challenges that idea that criminals are somehow broken. It says they're just educated.
Educated in the wrong curriculum. Sutherland argued that you have to be taught deviance. And you learn 2 specific things from people close to you.
First, you learn the techniques.
The how-to. How to pick a lock. How to hotwire a car. Or, in white-collar crime, how to cook the books.
But knowing how isn't enough.
Right. You also have to learn the definitions. This is the crucial part. The motives, the drives, and the rationalizations.
The mental gymnastics that make it okay.
Yes. The store has insurance, they won't even miss it. Or, everyone cheats on their taxes, I'm just getting my fair share.
So if you grow up in a group where those definitions are normal, you're going to adopt that value system.
Exactly. Deviance becomes normal behavior in that specific context. It's a passed-down tradition, not a genetic flaw.
Well, we have covered a ton of ground here. Enemy, conflict, labeling, control, learning. That's a lot of tools for one toolkit.
It is, but that's really the whole point.
So for the students listening, how do they actually use this? You can't just say it's all of them on an exam.
No, you have to be tactical. The biggest takeaway is that there is no magic bullet. No single theory explains all deviance.
You have to pick the right lens for the problem you're looking at.
Exactly. If you're writing about why drug dealing is common in a city that lost all its factory jobs, you grab the anomie lens. You look at the economic strain.
But if you're analyzing why a banker who crashed the economy got a bonus while a kid with some weed got 5 years in prison, anomie won't help you.
That's a job for the conflict lens.
And if you're trying to figure out why a teenager is spiraling after getting suspended from school,
look at labeling. Or if you want to know why a good kid from a stable home joined a gang, you look at control and learning.
It's about diagnosing the situation, not just applying a formula.
That is the sociological imagination at work. Don't just settle for he's a bad guy. Ask, what is the pattern here? Which theory fits the facts?
I want to leave everyone with one final thought. We spent this whole time talking about how society shapes the deviant, but I want to flip it one last time. How much does the deviant shape society?
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about the rebels in Merton's theory. the people who refuse to conform. Without rule breakers, without people willing to get arrested to challenge the law, would we have had the civil rights movement?
That's a really provocative question.
Would we have labor unions? Would we have any social progress? It suggests that sometimes deviance isn't just a defect in the system.
Sometimes it's the engine of change.
Something to chew on as you finish the module. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.
This deep dive was audio generated by NotebookLM, reviewed, edited, and published by Prof. Dixon. See you next time.